My name is Jaylene. I am an European who has been in post for 6 years now. I'm the Associate Director and I lead our procurement and supply chain advisory service function for the entire of the UK and some international regions as well. I've been mobilised on the DAN project since the very beginning. I was involved in the very start of this and I lead the SME content as far as the procurement service delivery is concerned. I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply as well, MSIPS, and I specialise in public sector procurement. I've led lots of local and central government procurements during the course of my career. I know you were all expecting to see Karen today. I think she was listed as the other presenter for today. She's unfortunately not available today now, but we have Max, and Max is going to do a very quick introduction to himself himself here. Bearing in mind, Max only found out he was presenting 20 minutes ago, so yeah, he's a sharp addition to the project. Max.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Max. I am a very new member to the procurement advisory team in Arup. I've been here for, I think, a month now, working under Jay as a senior consultant. My background in procurement is public sector as well. I was working in the Ministry of Defence for roughly 2 years, and then as a consultant, but back in the public sector in the MOD for the last sort of year and a half. So yeah, that's my brief introduction. Back over to you, Jay.
Thanks, Max. So very quickly on the content that we're going to cover in today's meeting. So we are going to talk about procurement strategies. That's the topic of conversation. We're going to talk about why they're important as a key to project success. We're going to talk about the stages of developing these procurement strategies, and then we're going to look into the detail of what a good procurement strategy could include. Like we said, there's an area for Q&A at the end, and we've also added a list of potential useful resources that you might find quite beneficial, just kind of there for your reading post the meeting. I think, Max, you're going to do the first couple of slides, is that right? I can't remember. I think it's this one for the next couple, is that right?
I think I might have been. Oh yes, is this it? Yep. Yep, that's me. Okay, I'm starting off. Sorry,
Cheers,
everyone. Okay, so why procurement strategies are key to project success. So I guess in simple terms, procurement strategy is a plan of action that details the approach for a project for the procurement and looks at the resource and timescales that are required to achieve the commercial outcomes. So the best procurement strategies would have project objectives and risks at the core, and include sort of the strategic decision-making process and ensure that all the stakeholders, both external and internal, are engaged throughout the procurement and contract delivery phases of the project. A good procurement strategy would facilitate program efficiency and value for money during the contract delivery phase, and ensure that it can facilitate the delivery of other project outcomes such as innovation, sustainability, social value, and it should be in line with compliant public contract regulations, local authority standing orders, and any other regulatory requirements are also a key consideration during the procurement strategy phase to ensure project success, and establish a successful tender as well. Could we go to the next slide, please? Slide 6. Cool, thank you. So stages of procurement strategy development. So to start off with, you need to identify the project objectives. So all project drivers and objectives should be identified clearly and understood from the outset of the project in the procurement strategy development phase. So workshopping with project stakeholders is often the best way to identify and rank those objectives and what you're looking to achieve from the project. And an example of the project objectives might include end user requirements, value for money, so looking at cost and quality, sustainability and social value, so people, profit, planet, programmatic outcomes, and health and safety. And you would need to identify the key project risks as part of the development of a procurement strategy. So identifying what these risks are, what the wider risks to delivery could be, and the potential impact on the procurement. And this should all be analysed, and then mitigations included as well. Some of the key risks could be budget, timescales, market capacity and appetite, opposition to the project. And then you would do an options analysis, so have your different routes to market. So the procurement strategy would include which options you're looking at and willing to explore, and then identifying the reasons why the most suitable option would be that, and have a multi-criteria assessment to identify which option would facilitate the best delivery of the project objectives and manage the risks suitably as well. Then you would draft your procurement strategy. So once you've identified which of the most suitable routes to market you would be using, then draft the procurement strategy and include the preferred options and also why you've chosen that option and discarded the other options in the procurement strategy. Then you'd move on to market engagement. So it's generally best practice to share the preferred options with the market prior to formally launching the procurement process, and then being prepared to listen to the market and update your procurement strategy accordingly should you have to maximize the market appetite. And then moving on to the next slide, please. So we've got creating a good procurement strategy. So you want to start with program governance and resources. So setting out what the program governance and resource requirements would be for delivering the procurement. Then you would include a market engagement strategy. So the approach and program for market engagement, what that would look like, what you would intend to do. So whether that's sort of an industry day or a bidders conference, that sort of thing. And then a packaging strategy, so how the contract will be packaged based on the project's scope, value, risk, and objectives. Then you would have your procurement route, so setting out the route to market for delivery and for delivery of the strategy in the contract. And then selection strategy, so what the procurement procedure would be, award criteria, evaluation questions at ITT. So those would be for cost, quality, sustainability, or social value, etc. And then contract and commercial strategy. So setting out the form and contract type and what that would look like and what terms and conditions would be included for bidders to look out for as well. I think that's all my slides. Back over to Jay.
Thanks, Max. Yes, it is. So yeah, so just on following on from where Max kind of gave us an overview there of what a good procurement strategy, just taking you into some more detail there on what we would expect to see and what you might want to think about as you're developing your strategy. So firstly, for program governance and resource, we would expect this to be front end in your procurement strategy, covering your project program, any governance requirements that you might have as a result of the standing orders, and then any resource required. We know resource is one of those things that needs to be really well considered, especially for a protracted process. If it's a long reaching project, we would expect it to have the resources really clearly articulated. So in terms of the program, we expect the minimum that we would expect to see the minimum date. So the ITT date, the ITT return date, the award approval date, which is often based on local authorities' cabinet meeting dates. We know that often has to be considered when you're thinking about your procurement strategy and your award dates. The contract start date, crucially important as far as the procurement is concerned, working backwards from there. And then obviously the contract end date is also one that we need to consider as well when we're developing the strategy. In terms of the governance, we understand, you've got public contracts regulations 2015, and then of course the Procurement Act 2023 that we're going to need to consider from October onwards. So really thinking about what legislation applies to your procurement, setting out the requirements that are stipulated by your local authorities in the standing orders, and any internal procurement policies or procedures that you have to adhere to as local authorities. Then in terms of the resources, we expect that you would identify all the resources, both internal resources in the kind of procurement team or even in other teams such as project management, legal, technical, but also external as well. So if you've got external consultants that you need to think about, or external requirements from others that you want to consider, just to make sure that you can get those in place ready to deliver the procurement. We always expect it would include a project manager, the procurement team, commercial support, technical support, and then confirming who is actually ultimately responsible for approving the contract award. Then in terms of the market engagement strategy, as Max said, there's lots of different approaches to the market engagement strategy, but what's important is that it's a key step in the process to make sure that we gain the feedback from the market to be able to test this externally with them to make sure that the procurement strategy isn't going to fail. It guarantees that the procurement is successful in that it tests it first. No guarantees obviously, but it guarantees that it's tested in as far as it can be. The plan, so making sure that you plan in advance. So who is the target market? What methods are you going to use to create that target market? Is it about existing market knowledge, which it often is? There's desktop research that can be done. Look at pin notices, look at trade associations for specific skill sets. Like for example, we would use the National Federation of Demolition Contractors if it's a demolition scheme, for example. And then local Chamber of Commerce to identify any local suppliers just in accordance with any kind of local supply chain requirements that you might have, usually in accordance with your social value commitments. Then engagement. So how are you going to look at engaging the market? Will you do, like Max said, some kind of conference or event? Will it be face-to-face? Will it be an online webinar? Will you issue an information pack? Will you do a supplier survey? Lots of different options you might want to go down here, but really about making sure that you gain and gather that feedback, which I'm going to come on to now, to be able to collate the feedback from the market. Building that time into the procurement program to ensure that you update the procurement strategy and the procurement documents to incorporate that feedback as well is crucial to the success of the procurement eventually. In terms of the next steps, the next thing I'm going to cover is the packaging strategy. So really the packaging strategy can enable targeted approach to the market, streamlining the process and reduction of costs to ultimately maximize efficiency and value through the project lifecycle. So at its core, the packaging in construction procurement involves breaking down the scope into manageable packages or contracts that align with the project objectives and the market conditions. So you can often find that some areas might approach a one-size-fits-all approach to this, but we know that packaging allows for customization to suit the unique needs of each project and the associated supply chain that might want to respond to those projects. The packages can encompass all various aspects of the project, including the design, construction, material supply and maintenance requirements as well. So for example, here on this particular one, sorry, I've just the lights have just gone dark in my room that I'm in because I'm not moving around enough. Sorry about that. So this one on the screen you can see is just a kind of broken out into lots. So lot one, you might do a design and then a demolition, construction and maintenance contract separately, or you might think about doing a single lot that encompasses all of the requirements in one. But thinking about the risk mitigation in that, so making sure that any division of lots into smaller packages ensures that the overall risk exposure is minimised, and it allows for best fit risk allocation among the project participants, reducing the potential impact of any unforeseen events. It can increase the competition. So smaller focus packages attracting a broader pool of bidders, fostering the competition and driving down costs. But targeting the procurement strategies can also provide the opportunities for SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises and startups in line with any social value commitments you might have, increasing the competition, also encouraging innovation and quality improvements as suppliers strive to differentiate. Delivering all of the requirements through one package can ultimately result in a program and resource efficiency. So if you do go for a single lot, we understand that is, it can often help put one set of requirements together for one lot, and then one contractor will then ultimately manage and be responsible for the entire program delivery. Next, we're going to go on to the procurement route. So there's a couple of slides on the procurement route. So this is the first one. You will see traditional procurement, design and build, and EPC. So when selecting the procurement route in construction projects, it's likely that more than one route could be adopted to achieve the project's aims. The project procurement strategy might consider each option, assessing each route against the project requirements. Again, like Max mentioned previously, a multi-criteria assessment is often done in this area. Traditional procurement, so linear process where the project is divided into stages. The client will appoint a design consultant to develop the detailed plans and specifications, and then a separate tenders run for the construction contractors to do the actual works. The pros of this, the client might have that has the influence on the design. The competitive fairness is achieved if all contractors bid on the same basis. However, it can result in adversarial relationships between the client, designer, and contractor. You have effectively created another interface there. A design and build, where the client contracts with a single entity that's responsible for the design and construction phases of the projects. So we can see that the benefits of this might be that it can be a preferred route in time-sensitive projects, as having one single contracting entity allows for a streamlined communication, enhanced coordination, and it could potentially accelerate the project timelines by overlapping design and construction activities without having to create that separate stage. But however, it can lead to reduced design flexibility and limited client input during the design phases. Finally, the EPC, so a single point of responsibility for all design, procurement and construction work. This is effectively providing the engineering, procurement and construction responsibilities to one single party for the entire project lifecycle, from engineering and design to procurement of materials and commissioning and project handover. So you have that single point of failure or single point of betterment effectively. They're responsible for completing the project on time, on budget, and to the required quality standards. However, it can in fact lead to higher contract prices, as most of the risk is allocated to one EPC contractor. There are limited numbers of contractors who have the capability and are willing to enter into EPC contracts. The procurement route, some more different routes that you might want to think about. So the construction management route, so the client places the works contracts themselves and then appoints a third-party organisation to manage the works contracts on their behalf. So the pros of this, the client retains greater involvement and control of the project. They adopt the approach fosters a greater collaboration, often between the project stakeholders, and enables faster problem solving during construction. But however, we might find that the appointment of an ineffective construction management organisation can put the project at risk of programme delays, cost increases and reduce quality. It also may attract higher management fees. The management contracting route, where the client appoints a management contractor who then contracts works with directly with contractors. So this differs from construction management, as management contractors contract works with the contractors directly, and it can be beneficial when a project is made up of several packages that need to be appointed to the best suited subcontractor. The pros of this, the client retains control of the design while drawing on the management contractor's construction experience and applying it to the design process. The client is able to transfer the procurement and delivery risk to the management contractor, who is then responsible for project management and carrying out the works. However, it can reduce client's control over the project, so it's not always the best possible approach. So partnering, it's also called alliancing. We see these quite frequently. It's a strategic collaborative approach that integrates and facilitates that collaboration between designers, contractors and subcontractors who share the risks and the rewards associated with the project. Examples of this include Project 13 methodology, where the integration of the delivery of the project is kind of shared between all partners. It promotes strong collaboration, integrated problem solving and decision making, and there's a shared risk and reward approach in that particular process. It also might also have complex contractual structures and potential challenges in aligning with multiple stakeholder interests. Okay, next slide is regarding the selection of the strategy. So these will be familiar, hopefully, with you. So the various procurement procedures that you might want to run. So this has to be covered in the strategy, whether you go down the open, restricted, the CPN, competitive procedure with negotiation, competitive dialogue, innovative partnership, whether you go with a direct award, choose to use a framework agreement or a dynamic purchasing system. So all of these various approaches covered in the public's contracts regulations all need to be considered and established in your procurement strategy to make sure that you're picking the correct one for the project. The award criteria, the price and quality ratio, what you want to use for the evaluation, linking it back always to the project objectives and any risks that you identified at the start of the procurement strategy phase to make sure that you're kind of achieving the right outcomes there. The quality evaluation. So what criteria do you want to assess as part of the quality evaluation? What weightings do you want to give to each criteria? Linking it back again to the project objectives and the risks that you identified at the start of the phase. So making sure your quality evaluation really thinks about the delivery approach, obviously health and safety, sustainability, social value, any stakeholder engagement you might want to cover, and then really the competency and capability of the supply chain that you're wanting to award to. And then price evaluation, the commercial side of the evaluation. So thinking about the fact that the lowest price wins approach should always be avoided where possible, as it can lead to suppliers leading to low bids to win a contract. There are alternative price evaluation models available, which are used out there. So the average price evaluation, where all tendered prices are combined to identify an average tenderer price, and then suppliers are commercially evaluated against that average price. The supplier whose price is below the average price received a higher commercial score. Suppliers who price above the average price receive a lower commercial score. Similarly, benchmark pricing. So suppliers are given a benchmark price effectively to bid against. So their tendered price is then evaluated against that. Suppliers then price any supplier that prices below that benchmark price receives a higher commercial score, and then similarly, suppliers who price below that benchmark price receive a lower commercial score. Price per quality point is a relatively new. It's been out a couple of years, but we have seen this used in a couple of public sector procurements where each supplier's tender is evaluated from a quality perspective first, and then given an overall quality score, and then that supplier's tender price is then divided by the quality score to identify the price of each quality point. This enables the clients to understand what they have been paying for in different levels of quality and helps to determine if the overall bid represents value for money. Whole life cycle costing. So taking the whole life costing approach, we'll see the supplier's price for the initial capital cost, as well as any operation, maintenance, repair, update and disposal cost if you're going for a holistic whole life cost. And this approach gives the client the understanding of the entire project cost and not just the initial purchase price of the construction phase. One of the final points I'm going to go over is just on contracts. So we always cover contract and commercial strategies as part of our procurement strategies. It should set out the form of contract to be used for the project. And for construction projects, there are often three options. The NEC, so a contract that was established in 1991, which was intended for use on engineering and building contracts. It is used internationally, not just in the UK. And it really focuses on a collaborative approach in resolving cost, time and quality issues. We also see the JCT used, which is an older contract established in 1931. It's a standardised form of contract for the British construction industry and focuses on allocating risk and assessing compensation without hands-on conflict management procedures. And finally, the bespoke contract, so where a client might choose to establish a tailored contract to fit the requirements of the project. And it's used when the standard forms of contract are not suitable. It's likely that each local authority will have their own bespoke contract terms and conditions, so using a bespoke contract is often an easier way of doing that. So when we look at contracting strategies, we often look at a number of issues that we might want to cover when deciding which form of contract to use. The market appetite, so which form of contract does the market prefer? So we, responding to the needs of the market, as we mentioned in the market engagement approach, will be they're more likely to participate if we're using a contract that they're familiar with, that they're comfortable with. So using the market feedback for this is important. The capability, so internal capability here. So what form of contracts do you as an organization have the skills and experience to manage? And if you don't have those required skills and capabilities, do you need to look at external resource to support in the contract development and formal management post-contract award? So really thinking about internal resources needed to manage the contract in delivery. And then commercial outcomes. So what form of contract will give you the best possible commercial outcome? So which will help you to manage the risk successfully there. I think this is my second to last slide. So creating a good procurement strategy regarding the commercial and contracting strategy. So really thinking about how you're going to then put this in place. So obviously when we look at cost reimbursable, target cost and lump sum different approaches. So the extent of risk with the client and extent of risk with the contractor is a sliding scale. And these three different forms of approach are responding to where the best fit for the client and the contractor risk allocation is. So for a lump sum, which is often referred to as a fixed price contract, the contractor prices the client's requirements. The client then makes a payment on completion of each requirement. So stage payments, for example, it might well be a activity schedule, but it will always have a fixed price lump sum. The contractor bears the financial risk of carrying out the activities on the agreed prices, and therefore the contract accordingly. The approach, however, does not give the client cost certainty. This approach is best used when the design is advanced and the project risks are known, and the contractor can provide an accurate price. A target cost is where it's agreed between the contractor and the client. The financial loss and financial gain compared to the target costs are then shared by both the contractor and client through the pay and gain mechanism. This approach encourages the contractor to deliver the value for money. However, it does not provide the client with early cost certainty. It's best used when the design is not advanced and the risks are unknown and the contractor is unable to provide an accurate price. In terms of cost reimbursable, the contractor prices on an open book basis and paid for all of their costs and an agreed overhead and profit percentage. The client takes on the full financial risk with this option, so the contract should be clearly set out what is and isn't to be reimbursed to the contractor. So the scope of requirements here is crucial. This is often used for emergency contracts as a contractual agreement can be quickly reached. That was my final slide, actually.